Hey guys, so today's tutorial is all about deserts and we're going to learn how to paint this. Just kidding. We're going to start with this, right? Let's just start with this. This might be a little easier. We'll get here. Today we're starting with this. Today's tutorial is all about painting deserts. Hey guys, it's Nate from Carbonite Creative. So we are finally going to try to bang out some of these YouTube tutorials. We've been trying them in the past and realized that we didn't know how to edit videos, or we didn't have the right microphones, or we didn't have a tripod that wasn't moving halfway through the demo, you know, that kind of stuff that you're trying to figure out. Today we were going to do a quick painting tutorial. We will do tutorials on how to actually carve and mold and all the good stuff. We're going to kind of break them up so that you can go to painting, you can go to sculpting. Just so happened that the sculpting tutorial we did for this was one of those that basically just filmed my big hairy knuckles, so we're not going to post that. We'll do another one. But today we are going to just give you some basic painting tips. We're going to make this a desert with sand. So what we basically did is we took a couple pieces of styrofoam. I think this is like a 1-inch block. We took a bunch of little scraps. We kind of just molded it, sculpted it, gave it some texture using heat wands and all that kind of fun stuff. Hot glued it onto the platform, and now we're ready to paint. Another thing that we love when we're doing any kind of ground or desert scenes, there's lots of different stuccos that you can use. We use this DAP premix stucco because if you look at it, it's kind of got like this grainy texture to it. It's almost like there's sands and granules into it. In the past, we were using cat litters and sands and different things to give it texture, and we found this stuff, and it works really kind of great without having to do all that. In part of this tutorial, we will be using a hair dryer to dry this really quick and just set our paints. We do that because, first of all, I have ADD and I can't stand watching paint dry. And the second thing is that when you actually hit this with heat, it absorbs paint differently. It starts cracking, it bubbles. It kind of gives you some really cool textures that makes this, gives it a little bit of a bump. Some of the other things that we use, our favorite paints are these Folklore acrylics, and so as you can see, we just basically have a bunch of like tattooing ground colors. One of the things that we use, or one of the colors that we use with all of our Dio bases, is this brown. It's a burnt umber. We love it. It's from Liquitex. We've tried using different burnt umbers from other places, and this one kind of sucks. It flares too red. This has really been kind of the big bad mamma jamma. And so what we do is you'll see when we get everything kind of laid out on how we're going to start painting it, when we hit it, every once in a while we flip a little of this into it to give it some highs and lows and to kind of pop it. We also use our blacks and different things of that nature. We are going to hit it with a little bit of this stucco to kind of give it some cool dimension. We're going to do that after our first round of paint. So literally hang on 2 seconds. Let me get some stuff mixed up and we'll have a conversation. Okay guys, so basically we've got all of our paint laid out. You can see that we are using, for our tattooing inspired base, we are using a yellow orchid. It's kind of a darker, sandier, goldy brown. We're going to use a lot of that, so we have it in a couple of different spots. The reason why I do this is, one is going to be just legit that color I'm going to throw on. One's going to be one that I'm going to mix some other colors into it to give it some highs and lows. You can see we have a little bit of our brown, that burnt umber there. We use that sparingly. We use it with water because it is really dark and it does really pop. We also have a brighter, almost like a canary yellow. We have a little orange. As we start going in and layering, you're going to see how we kind of mix those colors and kind of pull it all in. So we usually do this about two different rounds. We do one that's kind of really watered down because having it watered down really kind of seeps in and kind of gives you your base. And then we're going to go back in and give it some highlights after that's dried with just legit acrylic that doesn't have a ton of liquid in it. So it's a little more poppy and all that good stuff. So, all right, we're going to try to, we're just using a regular thicker paintbrush, I guess you would call it. And I'm dipping it in my water, and I'm just kind of starting to mix my gold with it. So acrylics can also be mixed with water, kind of like a watercolor. The more water you use, the lighter it goes on. So see, when I'm washing this on, Yeah, it's cool. It's going to give you just kind of your base of color, but you'll see that, you can still see the styrofoam in under the bottom. So for our first round, we don't care so much about that. We don't want it too much, so I'm going to mix a little more of the paint in here. I'm just going to start working in some bases. Again, you don't have to be too perfect when you do this stuff because, remember, it's nature, and nature isn't perfect. So the more uniform that you get, the whacker it looks. You want it to kind of look natural, right? So again, we're just going to hit it with this yellow, and then remember, any color that you do where you add like a little extra yellow, work in here to get a different base, you kind of want to move it around all over so that it balances out, if that makes sense. You'll see. So I was going to, in some parts of this, I might actually speed through when we edit this, but this kind of, to get this color technique, it's kind of important that you see how things just kind of go back and forth. It's not as hard as it looks. So again, we're doing our first initial hit with color. Got our rocks here. I'll rinse it in. I don't care if some's lighter than the other. Little water, little water. And then we're going to start talking about, after we get our initial base on, how we're going to hit it with other colors. Because remember, right, this is a desert. It's dry. Who knows? There could have been lake beds here. There could have been, rainstorms years and years and years ago. Or, what part needs to be darker versus, the lighter spots to make it look more natural, all that kind of good stuff. And we'll kind of walk through it and play. Took us a few times to kind of get this down. Sometimes it looks better than it used to. I think we have it down to a pretty good science now. So again, I'm hitting it. I'm mixing in a little bit of this now more tangerine orange into it. So I want to get some highs and lows in here. Kind of going back. If I do that here, I'm going to kind of add it around in here just so that there is a consistency in color. And I'm just working it in. And again, really, I'm just going super quick over this because it's my first base. So I kind of, it doesn't have to be exactly perfect. I like these thicker brushes for acrylic because they kind of get into the crevices of the styrofoam. I know a lot of people use a lot of different kinds of foams and things when they're doing it. I like styrofoam because of the way that it molds and that it sculpts. I know that a lot of other people use some different kinds of boards, and that's fine. One of the concerns I think is, making it not look like styrofoam and getting it to absorb the color. And I think that we have found a good way to do this. All right, so, again, we use a lot of this gold because it is our base. So we're going to just throw a little more in there. This stuff's pretty cheap. You can find it on sale on Amazon. You can find it in our store. I think it's like $5 a pop. You can buy it in bigger tubes and stuff at Michael's. So now again, we're going to start kind of doing our second wave of it. So now you notice I didn't put as much water on that. I'm just literally hitting it with some of this less watered down acrylic. We're just going to kind of form a little bit of a seal. Putting it in some spots to give it some highs and lows. I'll add a little water to make this, try to stretch and just finish up this back part. Okay. Let's get these rocks done. Another, I guess I should tell you, an important reason why we do the watered down version first is because if you just were to straight up put legit acrylic paint on here without watering it down, it would work, but you're going to put a ton down and you're going to walk away from it, and it's not going to absorb into the base of the styrofoam, which means that you're going to come back after this is all dry and you're going to see little white spots in it that you're sitting there with, like, you know, a pin brush trying to fix, and that super sucks. So we're not doing that. Okay, so here's our basic base. It looks like we've got it down. Now we're just going to kind of start hitting it a little bit with the darker, and we're going to start building some highs and lows. So I'm going to take a little bit of this brown, just kind of kiss it onto the side here. Let's mix some more water in there. And see, now we've already got one color up from what we were doing. And because it's wet, it's going to just kind of blend in with everything else, which is kind of cool. Let's do a little more brown in there. See how it's just kind of giving me a little kiss of a darker color. So I usually throw the darker colors into the crevices going under because you want it to pop and kind of give a 3D effect, if you will. Man, I went through this brown, right? All right, a little more. And again, once you have like this darker color, you're just going to kind of hit it, you know, in different spots to make it look consistent. I really try to do all this while it's wet so that with the water you can kind of blend in and it looks like one piece rather than something that you've just kind of sat there and painted and gone back to and back and forth. But so now we're going to, oh, yep, see, this is a darker brown. Okay, fine. So now we're doing darker, we're doing a darker base. We're going to do it on our rock. Just kind of kissing some of these top parts and highlights of where maybe like it was darker and it was going to, you know, it rained and it was exposed. And again, every time you do a different layer of color, you can just hit it a little here, a little there. See, we're already kind of getting some interesting stuff happening here where our crevices where we molded into, it's actually starting to pop a little bit. So you don't always want to dig into it because you do want those highs and lows to kind of come in. Now let's start using some of this orange and let's see if we can get some additional like cool color things happening here. Because remember, deserts are hot and they're baked and there's a lot of interesting kind of oranges and yellows, and you know, whether I was doing like a legit desert versus, you know, a Tatooine desert, or you would play with it a little bit in the browns. So again, we're just kind of going over. All right, so you can see, right, that's kind of starting to look a little cool. Here, you know, you can see where we glued some stuff together. Don't worry about that again so much. This is just a quick painting tutorial on how we get our bases done. But we are going to fix all of that with some of our putties and Bondos that we have up here. All right. A little more orange. This orange color is kind of looking cool. Gonna mix it in with some of this. We're just gonna kind of go over it. And like, again, all I'm doing is I'm just going from one side to another, just working the colors kind of in. If there's something that's too dark, like here, like if I was to, you know, listen, we mess up and, crap, you know, too much brown. Don't worry. That's the reason why you're doing this wet. You just can kind of go back in and work it in and move it around with what you want. It almost becomes like a watercolor. That's what I really like about this. Okay, so now here, while everything's kind of wet, we're going to add some sand and stuff to it. So I use a bunch of little tools and spoons and things that I use for this stuff. So I'm just going to scoop in some of our putty stuff. I'm having problems talking today. I don't know why. Okay, so I'm just literally taking some of my putty. You can use your fingers even too. This is low key. That's kind of talk about where I want it. Maybe I want it a little up there. I want some sand and maybe up where this rock is. Like, what's going on? That looks sloppy. Don't worry about it. We're gonna fix it. I'm gonna add a little, like, there's a sandstorm. You got to kind of think about where the wind's blowing. The wind's blowing this way. It's chafing the rock, so you kind of want to make sense of where your sand is. So all the sand would be blowing right in this crevice, be kind of blowing down here. You'd have like a place where you'd have more sand because this would be shielding it. So Okay, so here's just a little sand. We're gonna throw some on this rock here. Da 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 da. Got it here. Got it here. And while it's still wet, we're gonna add some color to it and do some cool stuff. And then I'm gonna hit it with a hair dryer, and you'll see what it does. It's gonna be kind of cool. It's gonna be really hard to talk to you with a hair dryer going on, stupid, but I'll do it anyway. All right, so now I'm gonna take some of our acrylic that's a little thicker, and I'm just gonna hit it with this brush. I'm just gonna kind of dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it. And I'm gonna kind of work it in. My brush is wet. I wanna make sure that it's not too watered down, but I'm still getting some color into it. Now you're gonna have to work this a couple of times. It's not a big deal, but while it's still wet, I'm kind of dipping it in, I'm getting my color. Let's add a little brown to this and make it look like it's old, kind of crusty stuff so it stands out. And see, I'm just basically hitting it. It's going to kind of fold over the rock here. By you doing this little kissing thing, you're seeing it's kind of giving you like the sand texture, which is kind of cool. So again, we're just pop, 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 pop. Keep it going. We're working it into some of the crevices. This big bunch here, don't worry about it. Just work it in. Let's get a little under that rock. You'll see when you're kicking it in here for your first round, sometimes you have to go over this a couple of times. You're going to want to anyway after it dries, because you're going to do your darker colors. And remember, when you're doing sand, a good way to kind of cheat to make it look like real sand is to use a lighter color, like white, or to use like a peach or something on top of it. I'll show you. So again, I'm just going to work the rest of this in. I really love doing desert scenes. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys like doing desert scenes too? Obviously, you're watching this, right? So I don't know what to talk about when we're doing this. Like, I never really, a lot of people are asking us to do these videos, and we're happy to do it. I'm excited to do it. We are doing it also because we have some really awesome sponsors that have been, helping us out. Silver Lake LLC gives us all of our styrofoam. They are on our Amazon shop that we highly recommend. The reason why we recommend them over other styrofoams is because there are a lot of other styrofoams on the Amazon marketplace and in, some other stores that it just doesn't suck the paint in. And you can never get it to not look like just a piece of styrofoam you painted on, and or the styrofoam isn't packed in enough, and once you start hitting it with paint and water, it comes out. You get styrofoam kind of coming out of your project depending on how you sculpt, and there's nothing more fun than doing something for 7 hours or whatever, and then finding out that it sucks because all the styrofoam's coming off of it. Talk about a party foul, right? So again, here's some of that stuff that we had on the rock. We're just going in a little bit deeper. We're pulling in some more of our brown into this whole mixture. This one we're going to kind of, you see it's a big lump, so we're going to kind of spread this. So we're actually molding this and kind of shaping this to how we want it. We're going to make this kind of go off to the side. Some of it flicks off, it's fine, just get rid of it. This we're going to let it kind of go down. It's doing this drippy thing, kind of cool. Let's hit it with a little more styrofoam stuff there, a little more paint. Let's hit it with a little more brown and give this some highs and lows. A little brown. Okay, and this one a little darker so it stands out. So you kind of get the gist of it. So now this is really, it's moist because we have obviously been adding water to it and paint to it. So what we're going to do is we don't want to have to stop our project, and we want to still kind of keep being able to work this while it is, able to be sculpted and played with. So I'm going to hit this with a hairdryer. And I am going to now put some more paint on it with less water, some like more legit acrylic, and it is going to bubble and things when I start hitting it with a hairdryer, which is kind of cool. It's going to dry out. It's going to just kind of make it look more like a desert stuff. Okay. And then we can also just kind of work in the color that we don't like and however we have to fix it up. All right, so here's that. You can see, I think it's pretty cool, right? Yeah. All right. 2 seconds. I'm hitting it with a hairdryer. All right. Literally high heat hairdryer, holding it over the places that are most wet. I don't even know if you guys are able to hear me through this. We'll find out when we edit it. I might be doing a voiceover here, but you can see I'm literally holding it over on super hot. I want this to dry quick so I can still continue to manipulate it. I don't know if you can see what it's doing, but it's starting to kind of bubble. It's starting to kind of move. It's starting to kind of spread. This also helps it look more authentic. Like years and years of heat baking, you know, if you will. And this stuff dries pretty quick. I mean, depending on like how thick you get in here, you might have some challenges, but this is also the time that if there is something happening that you're not loving with like your colors, say you got too much of something here and there, now's the time you could still hit it with this brush and kind of play around a little bit, add to it. All right. Yep. You can see, like, look, there's still some water under there that's bubbling. It's kind of cool. So you want to just make sure that that is super dry before you start playing with it. But see, another bubble just popped. When these bubbles kind of surface and pop, it makes it actually smooth out and look like sand, which is kind of cool. And you can kind of direct the ways that see how it's popping this way. I'm using the heat to kind of direct which way I want it to go. It's kind of cool. All right, so I'm not gonna make you watch me hair dry this forever. Give me a minute and I'll come back. Sorry, I'm coming back because I kind of want you guys to see this whole bubbling thing that's happening. Remember, I'm telling you that the moisture is going to kind of make the acrylic rise and bubble. I don't know if you can see it, but that's a cool thing. So now this air bubble just popped, and I'm literally holding it because I want it to dry. Because when I go back over this with a lighter color here, that's going to be kind of a cool feature. It just adds to like really the authenticity of, see, there's another bubble forming. It's kind of cool. I'm just working it with the hairdryer over, letting it pop, and that's going to be like another wave of sand where, you know, the wind would have hit it. See, there's another one. It's kind of cool. You see it? Before you go over and start highlighting and detailing, you just want to hit this enough times to make sure it's dry. All right, coming right back. Okay, so here we are. We've got it dry. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go back over it a few more times really quick. Again, this is going to be like kind of just a basic platform that you can start with and you can build on and add on. We'll show you some more complex ones where we really kind of dig in. But what we're doing now is, as you can see, now we've got our sand, our clay that's kind of dried on it, our stucco actually that's dried on it. And now we've still got, our carving. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over it with a little brown. We have two different types of brushes. We have a dry brush, which we're going to use for our final hit. And then we have just like a regular, whatever, acrylic brush. What we're going to do first is we're going to just highlight with some of the darker colors, some of these crevices and things to make it pop. Then we're going to go back into it and we are going to hit it with some lighter colors, whites and creams and things to kind of make it look more dusty, make it pop, and really kind of give it a cool highlight. high and low. So again, we still have our paint here that we are working with. We're going to do a little brown here. We're going to kiss it with a little bit of the sand and start kind of mixing in. We're going to water it down, and we're going to use our brushes here because we don't want anything that looks too like just painted on, right? We're literally just taking our brushes and we're just kissing over some of these, some of the carving, some of the high and lows. We want to give some definition so it doesn't look flat, right? So again, working the paint in. We don't want too much on. We're going to hit it with a whatever. We're going to find some corners and things that are kind of cool, and we're going to work around a little again, a little more, wipe it off. Give it some highs and lows there. Give it some highs and lows there. Here we go. We're just going to kind of keep finding some of these carved places that we want to pop. And we're going to hit it so it has some detail, right? Cool. And again, once you do this a few times, you'll learn like what works, what doesn't work. Because you are mixing with water, you have a little more leeway here. So if you do something, you think that you screwed something up, don't freak out. You can go back in and play with it again. Okay, so you kind of get what I'm doing. I'm just going through some of the higher places and adding in some browns to make it pop. And now we're going to go back in. I'm going to hit some of our rock details here. We're just flicking it back and forth, this kind of motion, picking our spots that we want to highlight and knocking over all our shit while we do it. That's cool, right? Okay, here we go. All right, so you get the gist. Now, any little cracks or anything that got messed up from that hairdryer, we're going to fill in. Okay, cool. So, not too bad. Now we're going to go back through with our dry brush. And the reason why we do like a dry bamboo brush is because you can just use a few of the edges of this and you just want to really kiss and pop some color. So, for our sand, we're actually using a color called linen. We're going to add a little bit to our mix. And then again, remember, we still have here all of our other browns, all of our other things. So you could kind of mix this into some of that stuff and give yourself some more highs and lows. But again, we're doing just kind of a generic quickie. And I just want to get some of this onto my paintbrush. I'm going to hit it with a napkin because I don't want it too much. And I'm literally finding my darkest spots and I'm flicking this on it and I'm hitting it. You see how it's almost turning kind of like it's white actually. So it's gonna make this look like it's crusted up sand. So we're gonna, wherever you would want sand to kind of be hitting, I'm hitting some of our darker areas. You can also highlight some of your crevices with this. It's kind of cool. The amount that you do right now, we're going to do like a kind of a light wash over it with the watered down version. Then you can go back in with whites, you can go back in with other light colors, and again we're just kind of brushing it through. You don't want to hit it too heavy. You want to hit it in different places. You want this to look like it's something that's been aged over time. Now see, we're talking about all these crevices, all these things with all the bubbles that kind of happened when we were painting. That was kind of cool to really see what happened there and to get those highs and lows. We're just lightly going to brush this with some of this, this linen color. So a little more. And because this is kind of still, certain areas are a little moist, this will kind of blend into it. You can let this sit for a little bit, make sure that you like it, and go back in and work it later. You can do some, if you want some real like intense highs, still wipe it off of your brush, but just don't add water. Let's give some of these peaks that would be getting more action. Let's give that some white highlights. some darker highlights, I should say, with this lighter color. Literally just a little hit here and there. Not going too crazy. But again, why you're starting with the lighter color washed down versus it without paint is it gives you one more visual highlight layer. All right, so there we go. There's some sand happening there. Let's get a little more kind of going off into this area. All right, now for the final thing, we're gonna really make it pop. We're just gonna dip and get one quick little shot of white in here without the linen. Wiping off my brush because I don't want it too contrived, right? And I'm just hitting these peaks right here. Hitting that peak. So again, remember, darker colors first, lighter colors to make it pop and to bring it out. Different layers of that can be done with adding water, without adding water. And then your final hits are like that kiss of white. Boom, boom, boom. I mean, look, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, you can't tell me your R2 unit wouldn't want to fucking go past that shit. Yeah. So that is just a basic, quick, little, easy platform. You saw how quick this took us. You can get more detailed and add more rocks and do so many more things. We'll show you how to do different kinds of desert landscapes. We'll show you how to do forest floors. All those things are coming up, but we've been talking about doing this for so long. We're actually going to be working on an indoor that I'll be showing you, so I'll be able to show you a little bit more of the sculpting of the base, but I just want to kind of just give you a quick idea of how easy and cool it is to do this. All right. Thanks. Oh, wait, I have to give you like a whole little spiel, don't I? Don't forget to hit the little subscribe button if you like subscribing to things, and don't forget to hit the little bell button if you like to be reminded of things by a little bell button. All right. This is Nate, Carbonite Creative. Hope that you had fun. Hope that you enjoyed it. Keep trying, keep going. Don't get frustrated. This is all fun. Keep watching back. If you have any questions, write comments below. Let's figure it out, and hopefully these get better with time. Thanks, guys. Bye.